Well, thankfully, Kingston, Jamaica will likely avoid the absolute worst of Melissa. That's not to say we're going to see very significant impacts there in the eastern part of the island, but by far and away, the worst of it will be on the central and western side of Jamaica as we go through tonight, tomorrow, and on into tomorrow afternoon. But of course, everybody's going to see a ton of rain. That is a catastrophic threat that is going to be accompanying the approach and movement of Melissa through the island of Jamaica. And there it is, the latest advisory. If you're just tuning in, you're wondering, wait, what hurricane are we talking about? It just happens to be a Category 5 hurricane, and that wind is probably an underestimate based on every piece of information that I can find. These are some of the most intense winds I've ever seen from the dropsondes coming back from the hurricane reconnaissance missions, over 200 miles per hour at several hundred meters above the ground. You might think, well, we don't live that high up on the ground. Well, some people do in Jamaica because there is that kind of terrain there. So I think, unfortunately, most things in the way of that kind of wind will be leveled, destroyed completely. But thankfully, there is a little bit of good news here, I guess, if you can call it that. This is an incredibly compact tropical cyclone where the hurricane force winds, 75 miles per hour, really only extend out about 25 miles from the center. Now, let's hope it stays that small. It probably gets a little bit bigger, but that's tiny. And once you're outside of that, you're in tropical storm force winds. Of course, this is not including the heavy rainfall threat, but the catastrophic winds are in a very, very tiny little area in the inner edge of the eye wall. Let's say maybe 8 to 10 miles from the geometric center of Melissa. So that's, I guess, the picture of it right there. And you can see it's kind of wobbling around. Here's the most recent path that it's taken and not moving much. And by the way, moving at 3 miles per hour and maintaining a Category 5 intensity is pretty much only possible about where Melissa is. You can't do that in the Gulf of Mexico. It would weaken itself due to the upwelling of the ocean or the Gulf. And you couldn't do it in the Western Atlantic. You do the same thing. But here, the oceanic heat content is so high, it doesn't matter. That depth of the warm water is so significant. No matter what upwelling is going, it still has all the energy to work with it needs. Hurricane reconnaissance is in there like that on their most recent pass. I didn't get a chance to look at the vortex message, but the Hurricane Center went ahead and went to 908 millibars. So clearly, this is at the very highest end of the scale. And it's, again, tightly compacted. You might think, how do you get this kind of wind with a 908 pressure or even maybe 180 to 200 mile per hour winds with that kind of pressure? Well, it's so tight. The pressure gradient is insane. And hence, the NOAA plane, by the way, the other hurricane reconnaissance mission, had to turn around, not because they were experiencing severe turbulence, but because they were experiencing severe extreme turbulence with many Gs up and down, and that is very dangerous. So the NOAA plane had to turn around. The Air Force reconnaissance still in there, and you can see what is going on in the center. Not much.